Alright, today we got some a bit different and a bit of a small list, but it's about a genre that we kind of need more of. The 360-degree shooter subgenre is kind of a offshot of like a combination of like a traditional FPS and a space combat game. Um, Usually involving being able to fly or fly something through a claustrophobic environment. Though I know some of them, there are a few out there that are closer to being an actual space sim. But yeah, this genre started with Descent and kind of died with Descent until the indie scene took it over. And even then, there has been not a whole lot of them, and from what I could tell, not most of them didn't do really well, which is a shame because they can be pretty fun. We'll go ahead and start with the series that started it, with Descent, with the first game. It's a bit rough around the edges. The lack of a guide bot that's seen in the later entries kind of hurts it, as you really have to find the exit before blowing up the reactor, otherwise you can get hosed. And there are a couple of cheap enemies. The heavy homing bots get annoying, and I don't know when it started about the I think they're called grinders, but they're like these hit scan enemies with machine guns that are impossible to avoid their attacks and do an annoying amount of damage. So the difficulty of this game is kind of all over the place, but it's still quite doable. It's just a bit frustrating at times. Pretty much everything it does is done better in the sequel, but that being said, it's still a decent game and worth playing. I will say this is one of the few examples where like the Mac and console versions are kind of better than the basic PC one, because both the Mac and the PlayStation 1 version added CG cutscenes for the intro and the ending instead of just the wall of text. And they had a Red Book soundtrack instead of just the generic MIDIs. Now you can, in the source port, kind of sort of mod in the better soundtrack. But as far as I know, there's not a way to do it with the movies, so there's not really a definitive way to play this one, but I kind of prefer just sticking to the PC source port. Since, well, I used to have the PlayStation version, but the resolution is pretty low and the frame rate's not that great. So yeah, I'll take the better controls and smoothness of the PC version and sacrifice the cutscenes. But I would say top of B for the original, because again, it just has some issues that are a bit hard to ignore. 2 was an upgrade in almost every way. It had bigger and more complex levels. It added the guide bot, which made navigating those complex levels much less of a pain in the ass, and finding the emergency exit less of an issue. It has quite a bit larger variety of enemies. There's some new weapons, some of which are pretty useful, like the Gauss cannon. And it lets you upgrade lasers to level 6. There's some new missiles. It does feel a bit more like an expansion than a sequel, kind of like Doom 2 was in that way. But like I said, this thing just does everything better. I think there's more levels in it than there were in the original 2, especially if you get the add-on mission pack. One gripe I do have with the game is because the first game did not have that much of a story, but this one has even less, because this one is just the intro and an ending. That's about it. The first one at least had short briefing sections before each level, which really didn't say much, but at least gave you a little bit of backstory to what you were doing. This one just doesn't. But apart from that one blemish, this one's better in almost every way, and I think it's a solid A. But you like the first one, you can also play it with a source port, which I recommend doing, because there's a lot of cool things you can do with that source port. Now, the third and final game in the series, Descent 3, they did something a bit different. Not only is this one fully 3D, instead of being part 3D with sprites in it. I'm not sure if I'd call the first two 2.5D, but there were sprite effects in it. This one's fully 3D. One of the major things they did differently is instead of it being a key hunt followed by a destroyer of the reactor / Bosch followed by a run of the exit, which is what the first two games were, it now has more of an objective-based approach to levels, which in my opinion was an improvement because it does add variety to the level design. The soundtrack was probably my favorite in this series. The story was a bit more deeper, though it's still kind of light, but I'm not sure nobody actually plays these for the stories, but it was kind of nice that they put more into it. And much like with the second one, improves the formula in almost every way. My only major gripe is the hit detection's a bit spotty, which can make the already dodgy enemies a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. But, yeah, apart from that, I don't really have much complaints, only praise for this game. It's a lot of fun to play. It looks better than its predecessors. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's an S tier. There is an add-on disc for it, which I don't remember if it's standalone or are you required to have the original game. This one doesn't really change anything drastically, or doesn't really add much apart from a few new enemy types. But it does come with only 7 new levels, but those 7 levels are pretty big. And they're all pretty good in quality, except for one of them, because it has some really annoying traps and a boss that's like indestructible until you get it to a specific state. Apart from that one level though, like, it's one little content it does that is solid. It's just the problem is there's so little content. But I guess this is kind of like Medal of Honor Spearhead, where it's like a quantity over quality, but the quantity is so little, you have to knock it down a peg. So I'm going to say this is an A, low A. Now the first, and as far as I can tell, only non-indie game that came around in the time frame that wasn't super obscure, because I know there are a few weird obscure foreign games that came out. I, for the life of me, cannot find them. So, yeah. This one also had 2 distinct versions, the PS and PC version, and then the N64 one. The PC version played somewhat like Descent, though instead of in space, it was underground post-apocalyptic ruins. Though you wouldn't know that, because the story is like, fuck all. It's even less than Descent 1. It's hard to really judge this one because, again, it's a clone through and through. It's just a different setting. It doesn't really have the destroy the reactor then run to the exit bullshit that Descent 1 and 2 does. So I guess it's a bit closer to 3. But the difficulty is a bit wonky. Some of the enemies just are really kind of bullshit. But just playing it on normal, I didn't have too much trouble getting through it. It is kind of short, but it's also a bit of a one and done game, so that's kind of the problem with it. It does what it sets out to do, but it doesn't do it well enough, nor does it do much to stand out. There is a remaster by Ninth Dive out there, which if you're going to play this game, that's the one I'd recommend, but get it on sale, because there's not a lot of reason to go back to it once you finished it, because if I'm going to replay one of these games, I'd rather play Descent or some of the better indie games, but it's still a B tier. The 64 version, I'd say, is probably a D, actually, because this one strips most of the single-player content and goes for being multiplayer-focused, which some people might like, but I don't. And the single-player mode is basically just a bot battle. So, yeah. Don't bother with the 64 one. It's on this NSO, so if you have NSO, the NSO expansion, then you can try it on that. Or just play it on an emulator, do whatever if you really want to play it, but there's no reason to play it over the PC one. Now, for the other series that was kind of... Actually, I'm not even really sure when this came out, but I think this was European developed. The first one was a DOS game, I believe, and then the two sequels followed by the reboot. The first one, Archimedian Dynasty, was really hard for me to get into because the controls are really archaic. And some of the later mission designs are really just designed to screw you over. And plus you really have to pay attention to the economy. So, it's a different game. I wouldn't say go so far as to say it's like Free Space, but... Or not Free Space, Shit, what was that? Was that Wing Commander Privateer, I guess is kind of like, a bit. But one of the main differences this is between this and Descent and Forsaken is this is underwater. So you got submarine battles. I will say Archimedian Dynasty, even though I don't care for it that much, does do the best at having a submarine feel. Because it's clunkier than the Aquanox games. But yeah, it's a C for me, although I know people are going to complain to that, because a lot of people prefer this game over Aquanox, and for me it's the other way around. It's definitely different, but it's hard to get into, especially these days. It could really do with getting the Night Dive treatment, as could both the Aquanox games. Or both of the original Aquanox games. Aquanox 1, this was my favorite of the series. I had a lot of fun with it. It's definitely more arcade than both Archimedian and even 2. But it does it well enough that this one really feels closer to Descent in some ways. The combat is pretty hectic. And the story is... I don't want to say it's more in depth, but it's a bit easier to follow. Because the Archimedian Dynasty has a deep story, but it's told so slowly that it's easy to forget what's going on half the time. And it doesn't have as much of the political bullshit. But for me, I would say low A for this one. Aquanox 2 looked better. It looked amazing for its time, actually. It really looked like you were underwater with this one. Storytelling was better, although the story is really all over the damn place. And there are some plot twists that really make you scratch your head. It also ends on a complete cliffhanger, because I believe this is I don't remember if this is a prequel or if it's a side story to Aquanox 1. But either way, it's got a bit of a head scratcher with the story. Combat-wise, it's more tedious. This one's probably the hardest one in this series, actually, apart from maybe the late levels of Archimedian Dynasty. But I was able to finish it, but some of those levels were a struggle. And honestly, the janky difficulty is probably one of the biggest hits against it, because, again, it looks better and it plays pretty good. It's just the difficulty spikes really hurt it. I'm going to say this is a B between Descent 1 and Forsaken. Now, well, it's not really recent. I think this game came out like 2021, 22. But the reboot, it's okay. It's got some issues. If I had to say, it's probably closer to Aquanox 2, though easier. It does a good job of looking and feeling like you're underwater. It looked pretty okay, but the story was dull, the combat was lacking, and the controls were not that good. It didn't even register my joystick. I had to use a gamepad, which is fine, but it kind of sucks when you're playing a game like that. Because for me, when you're playing a space game or a 360, you just need a joystick. But low B for that one. Barely edging out a C. The next one is the first true indie one, which is Retrovirus. I played this one way back in the day. I actually think I might have played this before I got around to playing Aquanox. I actually think I played this before Forsaken as well. But this game is basically Tron meets Descent. If I had to... More specifically, I'd probably point to being Tron 2.0. If it was a Descent game. Because it does use a lot of the same... it does use similar mechanics Tron 2.0 had. Does a pretty good job of feeling like you're inside a computer, which I appreciate. I'm always a bit of a tweaker for that. The enemy design could have been better and more have better variety. The story is a bit lackluster because it has two plot lines going on, one involving what's going on in the computer, the other in the real world. Again, much like Tron 2.0, but the problem is the real world plot is really boring. And most of it's just this annoying, the issues of the annoying owner of the computer you're debugging, as well as her relationship issues. It's like, I don't care. Like, Tron 2.0 had this big corporate conspiracy going on. Here you're just dealing with her issues and the fact that her boyfriend's a piece of shit. And who's the one that put the virus on the PC in the first place. So yeah, if you can get past the shit story, it's pretty fun. It is a bit slow paced. There's another gripe I have to make to it, but again, it's immersive, and having the unique aspect of being Tron 2.0 meets Descent is a definite plus for me, so it's a solid B. Minor Wars 2080, I get what they were going for, but the fact that you're constantly have to deal with resource management and actually mining really slows the game down, especially if you're playing on harder difficulty where you're constantly needing resources to repair pole breaches, as well as trade for equipment. If this one does feel a bit more like a space combat game at times, if I had to compare it, it's probably closer to Descent 3, but it just doesn't do it well. The story is all over the damn place. Although I give it credit because you end the game joining the Nazis of all things. That was not on my bingo card, so I'll give them props for taking a risk by doing that. Because you just going as far as to join the Nazis to fight the space communists is pretty funny. But I don't know, man. Like, there are some ideas that are cool, but just the constant stop you have to mine resources really just kills the pacing for me, so I'm going to say it's a C. I should probably go back to that and give it another chance one of these days. For right now, it's just, I don't know. I have really mixed feelings on it. One thing I don't have mixed feelings on much for is Sublevel 0. This is a roguelike, and I don't like roguelikes most of the time. Add the fact that the combat is kind of sucky, as is the flying, and the fact that the level design is periodically generated means the level design gets really repetitive. And if you die, guess what? Gotta start all over. Yeah. I don't know how much I can say about this without constantly bitching about the fact that it's a roguelike. I didn't finish it. I didn't really care for it. There are better games to play. I only bought this because it was a Descent-like, and I regretted it. I will put it in D tier because it's not, like, unplayably bad. It's just, I'll spare it from F tier because it's not unplayably bad, but it's not good. At least not to me. I know a lot of people liked it, but unless you really are into roguelikes, I would just avoid that one. Now, one thing I would not avoid is Overload. This was actually made by the same people who made, some of the people who made Descent, and it is good. It perfects on the formula almost to a T. The only reason I would say it's not better than Descent 3 is because they decided to go with the old formula and making most of the missions involve key hunt, reactor, or / boss, then find the exit. Thankfully you still have a guide, so that's not an issue. They learned to keep that in. But again, that is the only blemish on the game, because the level design is excellent. The graphics are pretty good. It has that feel of Descent. The soundtrack is pretty good. Honestly, yeah, again, just the fact that it's the formula is repetitive is the only complaint I have. It did get a couple of add-ons through mission packs. Unfortunately, instead of creating their own, they used the list of curated maps and slapped the story onto it. But that's not to say they're not worth playing, because the majority of the maps are good, especially in the first pack. The anniversary pack's not as good, but I would still pick it up. They're cheap. But yeah, if you like Descent, pick this game up. I'm serious. This is an S tier. Just get it. Even honestly, if you've never played any of these games, that's a good one to start with because it gives you the idea of what to expect from Descent, but with some modern touches, and you don't have to like jump through any hoops to get it to run. And the last thing I will say is there's a full VR mode for it, optional of course, but playing that in VR just really added some immersion factor, though you will probably have to take some car sick pills for that, because yeah, the puke factor is real, but I have played it twice in VR, and it's worth it. It's an excellent game. I can't recommend it enough. And it is a damn shame that it didn't sell particularly well, because the devs have pretty much said they're not working on it, and there probably won't ever be a sequel. So, yeah, shame on the community, I guess, for not supporting that. Or maybe the community is just too damn small. I don't know. The last one I'll talk about is Zero Grave. This one is kind of also like Tron meets Descent, though I guess it's a bit closer to Sublevel Zero in some ways, but without the roguelike mechanics. It's okay. It is a very basic game, and both the sound and the visuals are pretty basic and repetitive. There isn't much of a story. It's short, but, you know, if you're desperate to play more Descent like I was, then, you know, it's worth picking up on sale. It's already cheap as it is, but it's just an okay game. Again, there are other Descent likes out there. I have not been able to get some of them to run, which is why they're not on the list. And I'm sure there's a couple I forgetting about, because there are a couple other games I did buy, then played, then immediately uninstalled because they sucked. But yeah, if I may come back and update this list if I find a few more, but for now, yeah. This is my view on the Descent-like genre. So you can't go wrong with the classic. If you haven't played Descent, play it. But if you have and played the shit out of it looking for alternatives, these are some games you can look at. I'm sure everyone who's played Descent's played Overload already, but, you know, Aquanox isn't a bad place to look, and Retrovirus is one I do recommend.